Morning, everyone. Right. Well, it's a funny story. When I first started this, it was going to be the 4 P's of Joseph. Then it turned into the 7 P's of Joseph. And then as I was doing it, we've got 8 P's of Joseph. So here we go. So, a little background on Joseph. He was one of 12 brothers born to Jacob. Although Jacob had 11 other sons, Joseph was his favourite. Now, here's a good one. Here are the names of the other brothers, but can you tell me any of the names of the other brothers?
Benjamin?
Yeah.
Levi?
Yeah. Reuben? Yeah. Simeon? Yeah. Sorry? Yeah. So I should have wrote them in order, shouldn't I? Yes. Any others? Right.
Can I be humorous as ever? Was there Napoleon?
No, sorry. Right, we have here the names. There was Reuben, Jacob, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and these were the sons of Leah. The sons of Rachel were Joseph and Benjamin. The sons of Rachel's servant Bilhah were Dan and Naphtali, and the sons of Leah's servant Zilpah were Gad and Asher. So you've got the 12. We may ask, why did Jacob love Joseph so much? It says in Genesis 37, verse 3, "Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age. He also made him a tunic of many colours." This angered the other brothers, especially when he brought him a coat of many colours. Yes, this did anger them, but I think what angered them more were the dreams that he had. So the first P is prophecy. In Genesis 37, verses 5 to 7, I will read it. "Now Joseph had a dream, and he told his brothers, and they hated him even more. So he said to them, 'Please hear this dream which I have dreamed. There were binding sheaves in the field. Then behold, my sheaf arose and stood upright, and indeed your sheaf stood all around and bowed down to my sheaf.'" And then in Genesis 37, verse 9, he'd had another dream. Then he dreamed still another dream and told it to his brothers. And he said, "Look, I have dreamed another dream. And this time the sun, the moon, and the 11 stars bow down to mine." And Joseph knew what it meant, and he also knew what the second dream meant, where both objects bowed down to him. So he knew that his brothers would one day bow down to him. This really upset his brothers. In verse 8, his brothers say to him, "Do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us?" In the following verses, we see that Jacob asked Joseph to go and find his brothers, who were tending to the flock. When they saw him coming, they plotted to kill him, but Reuben stopped them. Instead, they threw him into a pit, the second P. What is a pit? It is a large hole or cavity in the ground, often created by digging. It would be dark, cold, and not a nice place to be. What would we do if we were in a pit? Maybe not physically, but we can be in a mental pit where, just like Joseph, we feel we cannot get out. With the help of Jesus, we can raise from our pits. Unlike Joseph, who was stuck down there until he was pulled out and sold to some Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver, which in today's money is around £11. Not much for selling your brother. So the brothers had sold him. What were they going to say to Jacob? That they had sold him? Of course not. No, they got his coat, attacked an animal, and dipped his coat in it and told Jacob that he had died. Poor old Jacob tore his clothes, put in ashcloth and mourned for many days. He says his sons then had the audacity to try and comfort him, but he said that he would mourn until his death. Do you think the brothers felt guilty about lying to their father, seeing his grief, or happy that they had got rid of the favourite son? That is for you to ponder. So what is the next P? Well, that would be Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials, captain of the guard. So he's out of the pit and in service at the top official. On the way up, he worked hard because the Lord was with him and gave him success in all he did and found favour with his master. So he was put in charge of the household and entrusted with everything he owned. What about us? Have we found favour with people maybe we work with, we go to school or college or university, and we are feeling on top of the world? Finally, everything is going good, when suddenly everything comes crashing down, like with Joseph. Through no fault of his own, Joseph was accused of something he didn't do, and this has changed his life again. In Genesis 39, verse 7 to 19, you can read what happened with Potiphar's wife. Have you been accused of things that have changed your life, and from being on top of the world, we are maybe in a pit again? For Joseph, it was worse than a pit, where he was thrown into prison, the fourth P. Prison. I wonder what Joseph must have thought. We have gone from a family to being sold to running a household and now being in prison. Probably not what he had in mind for his life, but the Lord was with him in the prison as well, and he was once again put in charge of the prisoners. And all that happened there, although not where he wanted to be, the Lord placed him there for a reason. Have you ever been somewhere you didn't want to be, yet after some time you knew the Lord placed you there for a reason? The same thing with Joseph, because in the next chapter we see that the cupbearer and baker to Pharaoh had fallen foul of their master and thrown into prison with Joseph. Joseph, being in favour with the guards, was assigned the cupbearer and baker, and he attended to them. Sometime later, they both had dreams the same night, but could not interpret them. When Joseph came to them and found that they were sad, he asked why, and they told him about their dreams. Joseph replied that only God can interpret dreams, so tell me. So they each told their dreams. You can read that in Genesis 40, 9 to 22. In verse 23, we see that the cupbearer forgot about Joseph. Do you sometimes feel that God has forgotten you? Well, he hasn't. It may take some time, but he will always be there. For Joseph, it was 2 years stuck in prison. So the fifth P is Pharaoh. Who was Pharaoh? And it's another name for a king. Well, Pharaoh had been having dreams, which you can read in Genesis 41. One to 7. And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh had a dream, and behold, he stood by the river. Suddenly there came out of the river 7 cows, fine looking and fat, and they fed in the meadow. Then behold, 7 other cows came up after them out of the river, ugly and gaunt, and stood by the other cows on the bank of the river. And the ugly and gaunt cows ate up the 7 fine looking and fat cows, and Pharaoh awoke. He slept and dreamt a second time. And suddenly 7 heads of grain come up in one stalk, plump and good. Then behold, 7 thin heads, lighted by the east wind, sprang up after them. And the 7 thin heads devoured the 7 plump and full heads. So Pharaoh awoke, and indeed it was a dream. He could not interpret the dreams, and maybe it scared him a bit. Have you had dreams that maybe scared you? Maybe you could not understand them. Let me tell you what happened to me when I was younger. I had a dream that my younger brother had died. Not nice, but it was so real that when I woke in the morning, I was so convinced that my brother had died, even when my mum said that he was in his bedroom. Was not convinced until I went and saw him. Now that's scary. In verse 8, he called all his magicians and wise men, but not one of them could tell him what the dreams meant. This angered him. His chief cupbearer remembered about Joseph and told Pharaoh that he knew someone in prison who could interpret dreams. In verse 14, Pharaoh told them to go fetch Joseph from the dungeon. When he had shaved and changed clothes, he came before Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Joseph about his dreams that he could not interpret them. Joseph answered him that he could not, but God would be able to. So we should turn to Jesus to help with dreams, as he will have the answer. Maybe not what you want to hear sometimes, but it is what Jesus wants us to hear. In verses 17 to 24, Pharaoh recalled the dreams to Joseph. In the following verses, Joseph told Pharaoh that 7 good years are coming, followed by 7 bad years, and that for 7 good years they should stock up of the grain and see them through the 7 bad years. Are you going through a bad patch at the moment? If you are, look back at the good years, but remember the good times will be back, as we shall see for Joseph. Pharaoh was pleased with what Joseph had told and said we should find someone to oversee the work that needs doing. So the 6th P is promotion. Joseph was put in charge of all the land of Egypt. Only Pharaoh was higher than Joseph, and Pharaoh gave him the name Zephanath-Paneah, which means the man of whom secrets are revealed, or revealer of mysteries. Some suggest it could mean the God who speaks and he lives. Joseph was 30 years old when he entered into service of the king. This is the same age as Jesus when he started his ministry, so Joseph was in good company. If you are going through a rough patch, remember a promotion is on its way, maybe through work or through the work that the Lord has for you to do. Excuse me. What about Joseph's brothers and fathers? What is happening to them? In Genesis 42, we see Jacob say to the brothers, "Why do you look at each other? Go to Egypt and buy grain." So off they went, 10 of the brothers, only Benjamin did not go. But who were they going to see? Good old brother Joseph. And what did they have to do? Bow down to him. Remember the dreams that Joseph had about the grain bowing down to him, and the sun and the moon and the 11 stars bowed down to him. The brothers did not recognise Joseph, but he recognised them. So the 7th P is patience, and he had to have a lot of patience with them. But he wanted to test them. So he asked where they were from, and they were called from Canaan. But he did not believe them and called them spies. Have you ever been tested by God? And although you answer him, he still tests you. In the same way, he found the same is found in the New Testament in John 21 verses 15 to 17. This is after he'd had the resurrection. So when they had eaten breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me more than these?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." He said to him, "Feed my lambs." And he said to him again a second time, "Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me?" He said, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." He said to him, "Tend my sheep." And he said to him a third time, "Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me?" Peter was grieved because he said to him the third time, "Do you love me?" And he said to him, "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my sheep." Let's go back to Joseph. This was the big test for the brothers because he told them that one brother should go back. If God is asking you to do things, don't get frustrated. There will be a reason for it. Now, going back to Joseph, this was a big test for the brothers because he told them that one brother should go back and bring the youngest brother. For 3 days they were in prison. On the 3rd day, he came with a different request, that one should stay and the other 9 go back and bring the younger brother to him. Why do you think he did that? After all, he had no reason to trust them after what they had done to him. I think it was to see if they were changed, maybe, or to see if they were truthful. Maybe we are going through something and God wants them to see how we react. What was the brother's reaction? What was the brother's reaction? This request. Well, they turned to what they had done to Joseph, the man who... Well, they turned to what they had done to Joseph, the man who was in front of them, but they did not recognise. They thought it was a punishment. Do you feel sometimes that God is punishing you? If he is, it is done in a kind way to teach us something. Joseph had to turn away from them because although he was using an interpreter, he could understand what was being said and began to weep. After he had composed himself, he turned back round and took Simeon and had him bound in front of the brothers. Although he did this, he started to show some kindness, as he gave an order to give them some grain in their sacks and put the silver pouches back and provisions for the journey. Why do you think he did this? Was it another test? I think it might have been. Would they find the silver and not go home? Would they leave another brother there and make up a story for Jacob that what would they do? Well, we read they did return home to Jacob and told him all that was said and done. Jacob was not happy And now Simeon, I will not let you, another brother there and make up a story. What would they do? Well, we read that they did return home to Jacob and told him of all that was said and done. Jacob was not happy and said that they had already deprived me of Joseph, and now Simeon, I will not let you take Benjamin. I feel that there was a lack of trust as far as Jacob was concerned with the brothers. Jacob felt that everything was against him. Sound familiar? The book of Job is about Job being tested by the devil with everything he lost, but he never gave up worshipping and praising God, and he was rewarded for it. Jacob never gave up either. Never ever give up on Jesus. He will never give up on you, even though you may be going through difficult times. Eventually, Jacob agreed to let Benjamin go with the brothers to Egypt, but he also doubled the gifts that he sent down with them. When Joseph saw Benjamin, he had a meal prepared and to eat at noon. When the brothers saw that they were going to Joseph's house, they were afraid that they were going to be attacked because of the silver that was in the sack. Do we ever feel afraid? We don't need to be, just as the brothers didn't need to be afraid. As a steward, and a steward is someone who, upon the house idea of being in charge of running the household, washed their feet and gave them fodder for their donkeys brought Simeon out to them. Wash their feet. Where have we seen that before? The Last Supper is one time when Jesus washed the feet of the disciples. The significance of washing feet is to show humility, service, and love in the Old Testament. It was a sign of care and honour given to guests. What an honour then for the brothers to receive that. How could we show that the same humility, service, and love in these days? It may be a little thing like baking a cake for someone, doing someone shopping, cutting someone grass, but there are lots of ways to show love. In Genesis 43, verse 26, Joseph came home and they presented the gifts and bowed down to him again. Joseph asked about his father, and they replied that he was still alive, and again they bowed to Joseph. When he saw Benjamin, he did not let on that he knew, but asked if it was the brother they spoke about. And he said, God be gracious to my son. At the sight of his brothers, Joseph was deeply moved. Can you see the difference between when he saw his 10 brothers to when he saw Benjamin? Yes, he wept when he saw his brothers, but when he saw Benjamin, he was deeply moved and had to find somewhere away from his brothers to weep. I'm sure that sometimes we need to just find somewhere to weep, but be assured you are never alone with God. Once again, Joseph set out to test his brothers. He ordered that as much food that they could carry be put in their sacks along with the silver. But in Benjamin's sack, his silver cup. Why do you think he chose Benjamin's sack? Maybe to see what the brothers would do. And so it was that the brothers on their way home, far from the city, when Joseph the steward came and said, why have you repaid good with evil? Surely the brothers must have wondered what was going on. I mean, they had done everything that Joseph had asked them to do. And now this. I'm sure we have all felt like that before and asked what is going on. The brothers asked the steward, why would they do that when we even brought back the silver from the first time that we came? So why would we steal from your master's house? They even said that if anyone had done it, they should die, and the rest of us would become my Lord's slaves. What a change for the brothers being truthful. They each turned out their sacks, and of course it was found in Benjamin's sack. At this, the brothers tore their clothes. In the Bible, tearing clothes is a sign of mourning, grief, or deep distress, often used to express sorrow over sin or tragedy. It symbolises a heartbreak and contrite spirit. No wonder they tore their clothes. They were probably thinking that their father was not only going to lose another son through death. Remember, Jacob still thinks that Joseph is dead, but all the other brothers through going into slavery. Joseph was still in the house when the brothers came and threw themselves to the ground before him and pleaded with him. Joseph said that only Benjamin would become a slave, the rest could go home in peace. They would have peace. They would not have had much peace, knowing that they had to go and tell Jacob that Benjamin would not be coming home. In Genesis 44, verse 18 to 34, we see Judah pleading with Joseph to let Benjamin go, and that he would stop and be his slave. In Genesis 45, we see that Joseph could no longer hide the fact that he was Joseph to his brothers. In fact, he wept so loudly that the Egyptians and Pharaoh's household heard it. The brothers, though, were fearful of his presence, but Joseph said, "Come closer to me, for God sent me here before you. To prepare for the famine, for the next 5 years there will be no ploughing and reaping. But God sent me ahead to preserve for you a remnant of the earth and to save your lives by great deliverance." He told them to hurry back and get his father, and that they shall live in the region of Goshen, and that's believed to be located in the eastern Nile Delta in Lower Egypt. When Pharaoh heard, he told Joseph to take carts and bring your family here to live. Don't worry about belonging. You will have the best of Egypt. The 8th and final P is putting his family back together. The brothers went to Jacob and said, "Joseph is alive," but he did not believe them. But when he saw the cart, he was convinced that Joseph was alive. So in Genesis 46, we see that Jacob came to Beersheba, where he made an offering to God. And God spoke to Jacob and said, "Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I will make you a great nation there." When Jacob got to Goshen, he sent Judah to Joseph, and he came. As soon as he saw his father, Joseph hugged and wept for a long time. Jesus is looking for those who have gone away to come back and receive a hug from him. What a roller coaster in the life of Joseph had. Let's recap. Prophecy, pit, Potiphar, prison, Pharaoh, promotion, patience, and putting family together. Joseph went through all of that and still loved God. If we put our trust in God, we can get through our roller coaster of life.
Well, give her a clap.